Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of Congregational Humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. I'm David Breeden, Senior Minister. Welcome.
Welcome everyone to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis on this Sunday, December the 10th, 2023. First Unitarian Society is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we are the birthplace of Congregational Humanism. Our programming is on-site live, such as today, online live, and also on demand 24/7. I'm David Breeden, the Senior Minister here. I'm joined today by our Ministerial Intern, David Buckley, and the Orange Mighty Trio. Not the Mighty Orange Trio, which would be more difficult to live up to, but maybe, I don't know. If everyone, wherever you happen to be, would look to your left and right and say, "I'm so glad you're here today. I'm so glad you're here today. I'm so glad you're here today." And yes, we will have plenty of time for good conversation, as you will be hearing. We've got some great treats downstairs today for those who are here. In this place, we go about creating the sacred by being together. We believe that it is a beginning of meaning and of purpose for us to be in a caring circle together, whether you are here in the building or online. We are all about building community, and we are so glad you're here today. Take it away.
Good morning. Here we are in some dimly lit spaces here. It's kind of the theme of the month is mystery, and maybe we're trying to concoct some mystery here. So thank you for being here. I'm very, very pleased to have Zach Klein here and Nick Gaudet. These two musicians and I have been playing together for just about 20 years, probably, in a group called Orange Mighty Trio, and it's been one of the most fun groups I've ever been a part of. And a few years ago, we recorded a Christmas album. And Christmas music is just a genre, you know. It doesn't have to actually be about the birth of Christ, just peripherally, maybe. But these songs are some lightly tied into Christmas music that are kind of fun. We've done some rearranging of some famous tunes. The first one we're going to do is Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, but set as a tango that Nick helped bring to us. Nick had a lot of experience playing in tango ensembles in town, and so taught us how to do some kind of tango styles with that one. And then in the middle, we're going to do a piece that's I Wonder As I Wander, which is attributed to a folk musician or a kind of music historian who was in Appalachia and collected the song. So it probably wasn't written by him, but he kind of wrote it down, and so then he actually got to copyright it, which I didn't know that. We were going through this process of doing the album, and oh, is there? John Jacob Niles? Yeah. Oh, hey, there's a movie about it apparently. Hey, well, yeah, that's the guy, John Jacob Niles. So anyway, he owns the copyright to the song, and he must have written part of it at least. And so we're doing the mashup kind of that song with another song that Zach wrote that we recorded called Energy Field. So we're kind of doing those two songs on top of each other. And then we're going to close with a fun rearrangement of Let It Snow. And we actually have some snow now. It's kind of nice to see a little white out there. Feels like we're approaching a holiday. It's nice. And then we have a couple congregational songs today. And one of them is Deck the Halls, which is really about just kind of like preparing a house for the season. getting some plants, getting some greenery, lighting some candles, getting together, trying to make the most out of dark times, which is kind of the long, long history of all of our solstice traditions is togetherness and light, and that's what that song's about. So please feel free to sing along when we get there. In the meantime, here is Tango Around the Christmas Tree.
That's great. Each week when we gather, we recite one of the 8 Unitarian Universalist principles or one of the 4 aspirations of our society. Today, I read the second aspiration. We aspire to make the change we need for a more just, compassionate, and peaceful world. Thank you, Paul. And now a congregational song, if you will all stand as you're able and turn to 349, or the words will be up here? Yes. Upright? All right.
So we'll do the last 8, isn't it?
And if you will remain standing and repeat with me, please, our covenant. Here we go. Love is the spirit of this place, and service is all. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated. First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis is a humanist congregation, as I mentioned before. That means that we are here for each other, for our neighbors, and for our planet. When we gather on Sundays, we take a few moments to reflect on the human experience, the joys, the sorrows, and the milestones. We do this to stay in touch with our own humanity and also to remind ourselves that a moment of stillness can be so healing. A sorrow today, FUS member Terrell Brown's mother, Norma Vorse Brown, died on December 1st, 2023, at the age of 99. So Terrell will be heading down to Iowa. We think of those affected today by adverse weather conditions, tornadoes in the south, deadly tornadoes, and of course, today, especially those who are affected by war. When you're downstairs today, you can send some greetings to the people on our list, Terrell, but also some people who are not able to make it in today. Now we'll take a few moments to reflect on those in our world who work to comfort the suffering and to work for justice.
So I know it's a bit of a crime to block that beautiful view, but just going for a little bit of the feel today, and that music brought us into the space here. As we here in the northern hemisphere approach the shortest day of the year, I'm told that here in Minneapolis, the moment when the Earth's tilt will start to slowly come back around to point back towards the sun in our direction is 9:27 p.m. on December 21st. I hope that at that exact moment, many of you will be appropriately at our winter solstice celebration, which I'm sure you'll hear more about later. For now, there's one that night. There's one on the 22nd as well, which will include folk dancing. That's pretty fun. However, if you come on the 21st, you can have another kind of fun. You can hear other members of the FES community perform storytelling. So I'm looking forward to that. As FUS member Karen Rowell posted in our FUS blog, accountings of Ojibwe history tell us that for people indigenous to this area, winter was a time for storytelling. During other seasons, the people's activities were focused around hunting, gathering, growing food. But during the long, dark nights in a bitter, cold winter, there was time for entertainment and the teaching of children. Winter storytelling, she continues, is a tradition grounded in the cycle of the seasons. If you look far enough back in time in any non-tropical culture, you are sure to find stories being told after dark, probably around a fire. The fire where people would gather for warmth and their stories would bind them together in community. The solstice, in what has generally come to be regarded as the end of one year and the start of the next, has also been a time for reflection. Reflection on the cycles of life, the seasonal cycles of death and rebirth in the natural world, and the cycles of birth and death that mark the beginning and end of life for all living beings. As it happens, the end of the year also marks an ending and a new beginning for me. My time here at FUS is coming to an end. This will be my last talk here. Thank you. At least for the time being. So for one thing, we can take some time to look back at the year and what we've learned, what worked, what didn't. What do we want to carry forward? What do we want to leave behind? And again, we can reflect on the mysteries of our existence as we gather around the fire and look up to the stars and the vastness of space. We can consider the brief span of conscious life in which we get to experience it all. We might ask questions like, who am I? And where do I fit in all of this? Perhaps the greatest mystery, at least in the world, that exists between the far macro level of dark matter and cosmic background radiation and the micro level of quantum entanglement. The greatest mystery in our day-to-day experience is experience. It's consciousness, right? This thing that is so intimately familiar to the philosopher and the neuroscientist, but so hard for them or anyone to define. Back in June, on our Coming of Age Sunday, I spoke about the mysterious human capacity for metacognition, our ability to think about the way we think and act, and to imagine other ways of thinking and being that we can move towards. I spoke of this as a kind of human superpower, but also as a responsibility that we can really mess up. In a related observation, psychologist Stephen Hayes, one of the developers of acceptance and commitment therapy, which I've spoken about often as some of the training for my other job, Hayes talks about our capacity for symbolic thought, which allows for metacognition, and which is our capacity for language itself. This is our superpower, and it can be our kryptonite. Using language, we can model problems in our individual and collective minds. We can imagine new solutions and implement those plans. We can also get stuck in our ways. As brilliant as they may have been at one point in time in one situation, or we can get trapped by our fears or our shame. In his most recent book, A Liberated Mind, Hayes shares the example of what happens in experiments when you give humans a language-based rule such as push this button to earn money. And then you set the machine to give them a dime after roughly every 8 to 12 presses. Not exactly, but just on average. Pretty soon they're pressing away at that button. But if then you change the way the machine works and make it pay out on the first press after every, say, 3 to 7 seconds, it's hard for them to detect the change. Monkeys, birds, and rats, receiving food rather than dimes, figure out pretty quickly that they can slow down. Humans keep pressing that button rapidly, sometimes for hours, and start saying things like, "This machine must be broken." When we're stuck in behavioral patterns that aren't working for us, whether we think the problem is that the world around us is broken or not, sometimes it is. As Loretta Ross taught us back in April, while defining brave safe versus safe space, either way, usually the best thing to do is to slow down and just observe what's happening, both internally and externally. What Hayes calls, and others call, the third wave of the cognitive and behavioral perspective, or contextual behavioral science, focuses not just on conditioned responses, not just on automatic thoughts, but on how we relate to thoughts and feelings, and how this either narrows or expands the range of responses at our disposal. Can we recognize when a pattern isn't working for us anymore and shift our response in a way that is more in line with our values? The skill that has proven helpful here is one we've talked about and which has been a part of many ancient spiritual traditions, most clearly in Buddhism. It's mindfulness. And we tried to practice a form of mindfulness in this space, right? In July, we reflected on nationalism. And we used an audience response system to observe together the different feelings and thoughts that showed up in us. And Jay captured them in art and the unhelpful behaviors that we can sometimes engage in response to those feelings and thoughts. We recognized these patterns and tried to hold this recognition gently, compassionately, mindfully. And in that space, we tried to open up and look at our values for inspiration to consider what alternative responses might be more helpful in moving us towards the kind of world we want. I hope I made clear that I see that kind of community mindfulness not as something new I was bringing to this space, but as a way of perhaps expanding and even being even more intentional about the mindful approach that has been a part of this community for many years since before I was born. And just as I feel fortunate to see how helpful contextual behavioral science can be for individuals and myself and clients, I've been grateful for the opportunity to try to apply these ideas on a larger scale here with all of you in this community. So thank you. Someone who has long recognized the potential for contextual behavioral science to be applied at a larger scale is actually our guest who will be joining us via Zoom at noon today. David Sloan Wilson is an evolutionary biologist and is expert in, among other things, the evolutionary and cultural development of cooperations in both animals and human cultures. I'm pretty sure I've referenced his work at least once in every one of my talks, and I've enjoyed getting to know him a little bit through his nonprofit work, and I met him for the first time at a conference last month related to some of these ideas. Of course, I was very pleased by his energetic response to my invitation to spend some time with us and answer our questions, so I'm looking forward to that, and I hope you'll all come back here after lunch for that. I've described before how Wilson partnered with Stephen Hayes, the behavioral psychologist I mentioned earlier, as well as the organizational psychologist Paul Atkins, to apply contextual behavioral science combined with evolutionary principles to the formation and behavior of groups, developing a group process called prosocial in a book of the same name. Over the past couple of months, a group of us here at FUS had a chance to test drive prosocial to some degree. Here at FUS, we already have all kinds of groups, committees, volunteer opportunities, fundraising, service projects. What I wanted was to see for ourselves whether the prosocial process could really enhance the ability of one of our groups to clarify purpose and effectively move towards action. I put out a call to anyone interested in using the prosocial process to design and test a one-off sort of prototype community activity, which would be determined by the values of the group using that prosocial process. That was the whole plan. To my delight and relief, several of you were willing to join me in that adventure, and I thank you all. I won't make you raise your hands. I didn't prepare them for that. Both individually and collectively, we asked ourselves some questions like the ones we asked about nationalism and the Israel-Gaza conflict. What matters most to us here? What thoughts and feelings show up that make it harder to move towards what matters? If these feelings and thoughts have their way, what unhelpful outward behaviors might be visible? If we're really living in line with what matters, what might that look like? Now, there's nothing magical about these questions, and there's lots of other tools we could use. What is kind of magical, in my mind, is what happens when individuals and groups can be vulnerable, really become aware of, make room for what's difficult, recall what's important. We started coming up with ideas. I should say we did address some of the core design principles for groups such as decision-making norms, but then we really needed to hurry up and get to work on our project in this limited time. The activity we all came together on was storytelling. It's funny because I'd been talking about storytelling with my internship committee back in the spring, after having read the book Between the Listening and the Telling by Mark Yaconelli, in which he shares about the Hearth community, a storytelling congregation of sorts in Ashland, Oregon, which I had found inspiring. I talked about the book with our Monday writing group and read a quote from that book at the assembly the writing group led in August. Then I kind of left it at that, sort of forgot about it. But then as we in our New Paths group were identifying our values for a new activity, things like fun, connection, inclusion, mutual support, etc., I thought, oh yeah, storytelling, that fits. And there was kind of this collective, yeah, that's it. We'd already identified those values and it fit. And then we dove in. The team planning the solstice celebration was on board to have storytelling as part of one of the night's festivities. So we came up with the idea of a storytelling workshop, and in the space of just a few weeks, we brought it all together. It happened that a skilled storytelling professional who lives right down the way in Wayzata was available and interested. We applied for funding from the FUS Foundation, and last weekend we held a really lovely event. And I will put you on the spot now. Was anybody here at that event? Okay, a few. Yeah, a few of you. Yeah, it was nice. It was small. It was about maybe 10 folks in total. Now we still have the main storytelling event to come. I haven't had a chance to gather feedback from the group or the participants yet. But I'll say I was very much encouraged by this experience of trying out pro-social. No doubt we were just lucky to have a great group of people, no surprise there, gathered from this community. But I think that engaging in the process did make a difference in how we interacted and how we were able to work together so smoothly. And I'm excited to see what happens with storytelling, both at the solstice and maybe ongoing here at FUS based on some of the interest that's been expressed. We'll see. But either way, I love how storytelling fits with contextual behavioral science, evolution, pro-social. If you think about it, it's another less formal way of looking at what's there for us, right? It can be a way of observing what works and what doesn't, a way of holding space for it all, a way of recalling values, a way of imagining new possibilities. So in that spirit, I want to leave you with a story that gave me hope recently. Normally this would be without notes, but it's not quite there. You may have seen this article in the New York Times on November 30th. It's the story of Silverton, Colorado, an old mining town perched in a high valley up in the San Juan Mountains of southwestern Colorado. Isolated and picturesque, it had nonetheless somehow resisted becoming another hyper-gentrified Telluride or Aspen. It stayed small, close-knit, and a little rough around the edges, but things were slowly starting to change. Finally, things came to a head in April of 2020 when newcomer Shane Furman, the New York lawyer turned Silverton boutique hotelier, unseated the longtime mayor and fire chief Gilbert Archuleta. Tensions openly started to fray. Eventually, a minor disagreement about saying the Pledge of Allegiance at meetings blew up into a national scandal. One of the old guard residents tipped off Fox News about the protest they were holding to insist that the pledge be reinstated. Bomb threats and death threats started to pour in. City Hall had to be shut down for days. And I quote, "What the world was seeing that pandemic summer was a town pulling apart. But unseen were the first efforts to restore peace. The economic development nonprofit Community Builders had been brought in to help develop a master plan for the town. Now they were being asked to broker a peace." And again, I quote, Community Builders asked questions that were intentionally open-ended. Why do you love to live here? What are your hopes for the future and for your life here? What are your fears? Maybe not necessarily contextual behavioral science or pro-social, perhaps, or even storytelling per se, but very much akin, right? Slowly, a new shared identity started to emerge. Relations began to thaw. And in the end, even former Mayor Archuleta came around. And in April of last year, the firefighters held a happy hour and taco bar at the station to unveil the town's new shared master plan. So stories like that give me hope in dark times. These ideas I've been discussing give me hope. And most of all, you guys being in a community like this and getting to be part of it and sharing it all with you gives me hope. So, thank you all.
Let's stand as you're able and sing out. All right.
Hey,
We can do it.
here's the last four.
Beautiful. Please be seated. Yeah, give yourself a hand there. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, guys. First Unitarian Society is a free, independent, and self-governing group. We are here because of you. Your sharing in your time and talent and also your treasure. The easiest way to give to First Unitarian Society is to go to firstunitarian.org and hit the give button up at the top right, and off you'll go and get fully instructed right there. You can also give on PayPal and Vanco, or you can stop off and give us a check today. And I should mention along that line that we are welcoming a new administrative assistant today. Yay. Her name is Ashley Rowe Steinhauser. And now she is the mysterious woman in the mask right inside the door. Let's not all descend upon her all at once and scare her away. This is her first day, so we definitely want her not to get too scared of us yet. But yes, this is her first day, and we'll be onboarding, a verb I just really, as an old English professor, I cannot stand, onboarding her this week. All right, after assembly today, if you are in the building, join us for conversation and food downstairs. Our mini meal today, savory or sweet waffle bar treat. Yeah, you know that, you want that. Mexican lasagna and yellow rice, and cakes of celebration, because we will be saying goodbye to David Buckley in a couple of weeks, but this is the last big day. So get down there and have some cake, and we have vegan, gluten-free, etc., and a nice chocolate sheet cake. So come on down and celebrate David as soon as we're done up here today. Let me think. Oh, yeah, early bird prices on the solstice tickets. You know you want to do that before you get get going because I know you're going to want to come by and do that. Also, the UU Animal Action Team is sponsoring a pet food and pet supply drive. This is for people who go into homeless shelters with pets. And we want to help those people they can go in with their pets. So this is a good thing to be doing, and please join us in doing that. Also at noon, there's a lot going on. It's going to be a little hard to choose today, but if you're new, WTF, that is, at the information about First Unitarian Society. Suzanne, our membership director, will be talking, and that will be in room 307 today. Our men's group meets in room 301. If you're a male-identified member or friend of FUS, stop by 301. And also at noon, our UU Animal group. That'll be in the Skyline room down the hall, and turn left and go all the way to the end. That's number 300. Join the new team. And Buckley, you mentioned before, anything else to mention about noon aside from David Sloan Wilson? And it's fascinating.
Yeah. If you haven't, there's an article that I linked to in the Friday update and on the calendar. Short article. You could read that in a few minutes while you're waiting in line for your mini meal, perhaps. Yeah, but not necessary either. You can just come and hang out. A fascinating guy, and always interested in whatever questions you have. Challenge him. It's okay.
Yeah. And if you're a literary type, you might be interested to know that his father was Sloan Wilson, the guy who wrote The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit. So, so if you have a little literary history there. Absolutely fascinating man. And I want to really thank David Buckley for bringing these ideas. One of the things that's going on in serious research these days is how do we go about building groups that actually care for each other, a caring group that also has purpose. And yes, we've been a congregation for nearly 150 years, so we've been doing this for a while, but we can certainly always be more intentional and build humanist communities that really deeply care for each other. And that's what we're working on, and thanks to David for bringing that to us. If you will repeat with me, please, our extinguishing the chalice words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All of these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again. Thank you, Paul. Take it away.
Go out into the world, be fearless, ask questions, hold on to what is good. Strengthen the weak, comfort the fearful, serve the suffering. Do what makes you come alive, because as the great Howard Thurman said, the world needs more people who have come alive. Rejoice in the power of the human spirit, so may it be.